Welcome to Money Talks. This week I'll be discussing the advantages and disadvantages of using a management agent for taking care of your property. No matter how hard you try, an inescapable fact of life is that real estate agents play a vital role in selling and managing properties. Let's start out with property managers. What are the advantages of using a property manager? Well, one of the biggest advantages of having a property manager in place is that they not only do all the actual management for you, the selection of tenants, completion of appropriate paperwork, inspections, etc., but they also do much of the accounting. From most of my property managers, I'd get a monthly statement detailing the gross income, the expenses incurred, their commission, and the net amount to be transferred into my bank account. This makes for very easy accounting. Typically, property managers charge anywhere from 4 to 15% of the rental income to manage your properties. Usually, the bigger your portfolio, the lower the commission rate they'll settle for. Another advantage of using property managers is that the less pleasant work of evictions, notices of rental increases, and notices requiring tenants to remedy shortcomings in keeping the property clean and tidy no longer need to be handled by you personally. So how do you go about choosing a property manager? Well, just like with the selection of a property to buy, or the selection of a real estate agent to work with, or the selection of a tradesman to work on your properties, it's somewhat of a numbers game. Go with recommendations from friends or other landlords, interview prospective managers, ask them how they have dealt with a particular problem in the past, and then try them out. You can always change them later on if you don't see eye to eye. However, it may not always be so easy to change agents, especially if you've bought the property with the tenants in it. Let me tell you about an experience I had with an agent in the UK. I bought a property with tenants in it, and by extension I got saddled with the agent who'd originally rented it to them. As it was my very first investment property, I didn't want to have an agent manage the property for me. I wanted to manage it myself. But it wasn't that easy. The agent kept their security deposit because he'd found the tenants, and even though it was my property, he demanded that they pay the rent to him, and on top of that, he withheld that rent and didn't pay it to me. I had no legal recourse unless I evicted the tenants, which ultimately I had to do. It was all very amicable as the tenants knew what was happening. They spent one night away from the house to make it legal, and then I presented the eviction notice from the courts to the agent, and he was forced to return the security deposit and pay me what he owed me on the rent. After that, my tenants came back to me, we signed a new lease, and I managed the property myself. But as a warning, it doesn't always work out that way where there is an amicable eviction and wresting your property away from another management agent. Now, just because you use one management company to look after one or several of your properties, it should not be a foregone conclusion that you always use the same firm for any subsequent properties you acquire in the same area. In fact, engaging two competing firms can be very healthy in that they'll each try to do well by you to win over more business. This relates back to my earlier program on selecting builders. Always get 3 quotes for any job, and don't get complacent by just using one builder all the time. The same applies to agents. You can lose your tenants and your rent very quickly if the property manager does not respond quickly to repairs or complaints from tenants. Let me tell you about a situation I had when I first went into the property investment business in the UK. I had some tenants move into one of my properties, and they'd signed a lease agreement and paid a month's rent in advance, as well as a security deposit. I turned the management of that property over to an agent, with the understanding that my tenants would call them with any problems that arose, and they'd act on my behalf immediately upon hearing about any issues that needed to be resolved. What happened next with these tenants was a nightmare. Unbeknownst to me, the roof started to leak in the master bedroom from day one. During the night, if it rained, they had to set out buckets to collect the water that was coming through the roof. They called the management company the next morning and were told that a roofer would be there to fix the problem. This went on for 3 weeks, and each time the leaks were getting worse. The management company kept promising to send the roofer. At the end of the 3 weeks, my tenant's father, who was a lawyer, sent a letter to me threatening to sue me if I didn't give the tenants their security deposit back, but also their first month's rent and another month's rent to compensate them for all the emotional upset that had been caused and the physical inconvenience of living under those conditions, as well as all the time that they'd lost from their jobs looking for another place to live. The upshot of the story is that the management company never sent the roofer, they never notified me, and they behaved totally irresponsibly. In the end, I lost my tenants, I lost money, and the management company lost me as a client. Of course, none of this would have happened in New Zealand because the law protects both landlord and tenant. However, if you're looking to invest in other countries, be sure that you know the current laws regarding all aspects of property investment. So to summarise, on the plus side, agents can save you paperwork, having to deal with courts and eviction notices, unpleasant issues like informing tenants of rent increases and complaints against them. On the minus side, they can be lazy, irresponsible and negligent, slow to get proper repairmen out quickly, and neglectful about informing you when there are serious problems with your property. Don't go away, I'll be back soon.